In step 29 of this Institute of Practical Learning course on self-awareness, we look at why it is that even good inputs and new information do not get recorded in your memory, and especially are not taken up within your mind and turned into constructive action that will progress your life.
He enjoyed doing them, and in an interview, he was able to convey to the person interviewing him what his strengths were, what his personality was, and potentially work with the interviewer to find a match. And is that a job Corbin wants to have? And is he an employee that the interviewer wants to have? And finding that match is a skill, it's important. And again, these, especially the Corbin dialogues, will help you for interviews. But it can help you in many, many, many other ways. It isn't just about interviews. Okay, so is it relevant to your situation? Well, I've given you interviews as an example. Are there quick wins? Win-win, I suggested to you the active listening as an example. Is it easy? Yes, it is. I've made it easy. I mean, these videos, these lectures about self-awareness, they're just backing to help you understand self-awareness. Self-awareness it's a whole new topic. There's very, very little of any value out there in the world. And I felt it was important to help you understand and raise your self-awareness. Now, there's probably maybe even 3 hours now of stuff about self-awareness. I'm sure you won't see anything like that out anywhere else. I hope you've stayed the course with it. I'm going to shut up. I'm kind of going into rambling mode a little bit, but self-awareness will help you know what to change and how to change it. And the rest of the course gives you the tools so that you can use the tools in terms of making the change to your conscious and subconscious mind. I'm going to pause, in fact, stop for now, for today, on that final note. I hope I'll do some more tomorrow, which is Friday, and then I'm back to the UK. And who knows what will happen, because I won't have access to this terrific room and resource and board. So maybe tomorrow I can do some more. Otherwise, thank you for listening. I've enjoyed doing it again hugely. If I don't speak to you again, I wish you every success. I've done my best to give you a resource of value to you. The point here is I'm giving it to you. And if you're smart, you're going to use it. Thanks. Bye-bye. So we've been talking about raising your self-awareness. And what we've discussed is the 10 questions that get asked by the guard at the gate to your mental fortress before certain types of input can get in. And what we're discussing really is this training course and the kind of inputs which I'm trying to put into your mind, which will help you learn and not get discarded in the longer term. So I'm seeking to actually help you change your behavior for the better. It's this one. Will it help me change for the better? So let's do away with all this stuff. What I'm going to talk to you about is why so often, even though you are willing and interested to learn, and maybe you're one of the 2 or 3 million people who've looked at some of these TED Talks or other subjects about self-development, self-improvement, you may be one of those 1 million or 2 that have watched and you haven't changed. You probably didn't learn very much, and then you just got back on with your life. And the potential gains for you of having learned have been lost to you. Now, I'm very keen that you, the 1 in 1,000 who persisted with this and hung in there, I'm very keen that this stuff doesn't just pass through your mind and get forgotten, so that the time you've invested so far isn't wasted. Now, there are certain things that go on in your mind. When we're talking to you about your self-awareness, there are certain things that go on in your mind that will cause the information to fail a test. There are another 2 or 3 tests to come, which will cause the information to fail. You will forget it, your time will be wasted, and you will not learn. So I'm going to talk to you about what those tests are. It's to your advantage to understand, to be aware of what these tests are, because you can set your mind accordingly and prevent that information from failing the test, and therefore preventing you from wasting your time. Okay, so I think you've got the idea that the information is coming through. It's assuming we're at the point that the information, the inputs have passed that question 10, they've passed that test, and the information, the inputs are now coming into your mind. Question that gets asked, let's just say it's coming in, it's got an okay to get in. The first question is this familiar? Your mind sets up so that you don't have to go through all these tests all the time. Your mind can tag inputs with a yes, this stuff's okay. We've gone through all the hassle of making decisions about, is it a credible source? Is it a topic that we're interested in? And so is this familiar and passed before? Now, if the answer to that is yes, it goes straight through into what I call the 4 I's department. Now, it's actually 4 times I, and this I stands for intelligences. But it's easier in the English language just to think of it as 4 I's. So you can imagine that as a person that's got not just 2 eyes, but a super clever eye here, and maybe even an extra eye here. So these are your normal eyes. This is the sort of eye of Buddha almost, special eye, and this is even an extra eye that looks out around the place at 360 degrees. So basically the bottom line on this is you have all these intelligences inside you, which generally speaking, you don't use and you don't develop. And the whole point of this course is to help you develop your different intelligences. So this information gets passed. If it's familiar and it's okay, it just goes straight off into that department for subsequent processing. And I'm going to explain the very final phase of this is where I will explain to you how your intelligences process the information in different ways and help you act and learn. Without an understanding of how that happens, you probably won't act and you really probably won't learn. So is this familiar and okay? Yes. So it goes off to 4 I's. Off it goes. And we're going to talk about that later. Okay, so the next question is, for this input as it comes through, is at this moment, so at this moment in time is an awful phrase, but let's change it to right now, okay? Right now, does this input fit my purpose? Now, remember, this is input that's streaming in here. And you will, up here in your mind, your personality, and so on, you may or may not have a purpose for this activity. If you have already decided in your own mind that you are going to be purposeful about this, you have a reason for wanting to do it, then this test will be okay. So it might go straight off, or it might be subject to a little bit more questioning. On the other hand, if, and we're talking right now, because the mind is processing things moment by moment, right now, does this input fit my purpose? If you are in an office and you're busy, and some input comes along about an opportunity to learn and develop your soft skills, it may not be relevant at that moment in time, or the right now moment. But if it doesn't pass this, does it fit my purpose? It goes into a waste bin, does not fit, P for purpose. Okay, all right, now the next question is, does it fit where I am on my growth path? I'll call it a learning growth path. So does the input fit where I am on my learning growth path? Now, this has to do with levels of detail. And what I've talked with Corbin is there are typically 4 levels of detail. It goes from level 1 up to level 4. Now, level 1 is the concept, and it goes on along to level 4 equals like very detailed. And I recorded a video with Corbin where we used a clip of the Big Bang Theory. And there's a chap in the Big Bang Theory who, when he talks to people, he works down at this level 4 detail. He's like super geeky. Whereas most of us, if we want to learn something, we need to be taken up along that growth path in a gentle sort of way. We don't want to be thrown in instantly with too much detail. Now, if you watch videos on YouTube, you will see that the people who are talking to you don't take you along a path going gently from level 1 up to level 4. They quite like to show you how clever they are by, well, they can bring in massive levels of detail at any kind of point in the whole process. Now, your mind is looking at that person talking and listening, and they're saying, well, is this all this input? Is this input sympathetic to my state of mind? At this stage where I am on my growth path, I need a particular level of detail. I don't want too little, because it'd be boring if I already get it and I know the concept. I don't want it to be too much, because I'm never going to know how to filter uranium X293 out of uranium X294. That's down here, level 4. I don't need that. I'm not interested in it. And so what your mind does is it says, forget it. Your mind's very, very quick at saying to pretty well everything, forget it. Let's face it, your mind's getting hundreds of thousands of suggestions for what you learn every second. So its default, I think there's a website called Tinder or something for dating apps, people looking for relationships. And, if you like the person, you swipe in one direction. And if you don't like the person, you swipe the other direction. I haven't used that particular website or any dating websites, to be honest. I'm glad to say I haven't had the need. I was very happily married for 50 years. And so I've been lucky, but not everybody's that lucky. There's nothing wrong with using websites. I think it's the modern way. Because in the old, I met my wife at a dance. Now, it happened to be a dance that I had organised, but it was still a dance. And that was the old way. And we can keep some of that. So it's to do with learning growth. Now, as I say, if it's too much detail, it goes into a different way spin, another way spin here. Wrong level of detail. Okay, right, the next bit is pretty important, actually. And because I want to come into this, I'm going to hope you clock those 3. And we're effectively going down, if we call this 1, 2, and 3, we're then going to go down to test number 4. Okay, so I'm going to pause, I'm going to stop the board, not stop the board, you know what I'm saying. I'm going to pause and I'm going to rub out some of this stuff, and we'll continue through with question number 4. But what I am going to do is leave these waste things, because they're important.
Hopefully, you're now beginning to understand the importance of purpose as an aid to learning, and also levels of detail. When you're listening to people, or even when you're speaking, get the level of detail right. Take people from the easiest to understand through to the minimum level of detail to achieve your purpose and their purpose. And be very careful of giving too much detail, because that will switch people off.